Say that again?
Oh, cool. The dogs are acting differently as, like, like a continuation of that whole, like, Anyway, the dog food market in Halo during this time period was really getting great. The dogs were basically, like, acting much weirder than normal in the sense that they're being more domestic. Very much like the equivalent of, like, going from, like, actual dog to dog that doesn't yell as much and, tends to cower in the corner for some weird reason. No one really knows. They stop pissing on the carpet. That's all that matters.
So are they behaving or?
They just started acting more odd. Like, they stopped basically. They acted more domesticated, but in a weird way. Like, almost like a weird, like, uncanny valley-esque way. Something was definitely going wrong, and scientists were like, huh, maybe we should look into this what this protein powder is. They look at, like, the fucking whey container and go like, huh, just basic protein strands. That's weird. Okay, it's fine.
Oh! Neuron activation. I think I know where this is going.
After a long while, colonies started vanishing. And so the basic ancient human military was like, okay, we gotta check this shit out.
I'm just imagining just feeding it to the dogs and then go like, why is this spicy?
A human, basically, this weird plague started spreading called the shifting plague. People started going crazy. Dogs turning immediately feral. Colonies that basically imported this powder very quickly started vanishing overnight. And humans basically started, treating it like an actual problem and not realizing what was causing it fully. All they knew is that the animal spread from these shrew animals, and these strange fleshy polyps would form on the dog's body, and if you were bit by the dog, you would start basically going through almost like dementia-like symptoms as your mind slowly turns to basically gelatin. Flesh
Yes,
cults
continue
stop.
elaborate as my edible kicks in.
Flesh cult begins to occur, where people infected by this would purposely force people to eat these like extrusions off their body. So to give you a picture, a guy has a tumor growing on his shoulder. He begins to just tie a guy down and force the guy to eat the tumor.
Oh dear.
That's like the equivalent of a guy with leprosy going like, "I'll hail the disease." Anyway, so humanity was like, okay, this is a real problem. These cults need to be put down. So they started basically, increasing police forces, and it was way too late because the planet where this originated from went dark again. And they're like, it's a damn cult again. I'm gonna go basic police this out. And they sent like an unprepared military force, expecting like the equivalent of like humans, fanatics shooting at them. Instead, the very streets themselves were covered in viscous flesh, crawling towards them, inhabiting and consuming all in its path. And this is when humanity collectively were like, oh no, that's not good. That's not how you play the game. Anyway, humanity all collectively just said, we can't handle this. Because all the planets that were previously affected by this flesh cult began to fall, one by one, to this strange, like, unifying plague.
Oh, even the plants?
Even the plants were being infected. All biomass was consumed, basically.
I wonder if the flood knows if trees can scream.
Yeah, they do. Because that tree now has a mouth, and his mouth was originally owned by a guy named Frank.
Not Frank!
Anyway, around this time when the fucking, like, shifting plague became what we now colloquially know as the Flood, it was very much a lot different to what we know in Halo. You know how the Flood is like this unified consciousness? During this time period, I haven't read the fucking books in a while. I'm just basically giving like a layman's term for this stuff. The Flood more or less was this like cacophony of a chorus without a conductor. Every planet was this one single consciousness screaming for purpose, unbound by the basic conventional laws of physics in the sense of like a living organism, but everyone that infected it was merely a screaming voice in a chorus, undirected with even a single direction or note. And Harakam, or whatever it is, like the human capital at this point, was a precursor superstructure. Basically, this like artificial like ring worlds, not ring worlds, like this. Think basically the Forerunner like shield worlds, but a lot more like pretty cooler. Basically, they discovered this like weird creature that's been kept in like stasis, like kept in stasis and like, oh hey, this is a bit cool. Let's talk to this like super intelligent form of life. This is someone known as the Primordial, as that is the title he has chosen, I believe, because he is far older than any living creature there is. The Primordial is a dickhead.
Reinforcements.
Now, when it comes down to it, they're asking you questions like, okay, if you're so old, what's the meaning of life? What's going on? What's the secrets to the flood?
Please tell me he answered 42.
No. Instead, the answer that was given to the scientists made them kill themselves. He basically told the scientists when they
That
asked
must have been a
what's the
very
nature-
tricky equation. They just couldn't handle not knowing that the answer was answer to that equation was in fact 42 and just killed themselves.
It was more so a situation of like, hey, why is the flood existing? Like, what is this? And the Primordial literally said, yeah, you ate the powder. It's your fault. You're all going to die and have your consciousness put into an eternal hell. Have fun. Now, when this is going down, eventually, I believe, like, fast forward, humanity's kind of running away from the flood, going to burning all the planets they've been to slow the flood down and prevent it from consuming more biomass. And eventually they went into Forerunner space. And if you recall, the Forerunners kind of just told humanity, if you go into our place, we're gonna fucking nuke you.
Round start.
I'm gonna basically just, give you like a little image. Imagine you're like, like one of the basically part of the Ecumene, and you're like, one of the leaders of the Forerunners, and it's like you're like, the Didact or the whatever the guy's name is. Like the title, it's not the Didact, it's like the something else, whatever. Basically, the guy was like, hey, sir, humans are back. Oh, cool. Did they send like an scouting mission to basically go here? Send them back with a warning because we don't actually want to go to war with them because it'll cost us. No, it seems that they're burning our planets down. What? Yeah, they're literally bombing our planets till they're. Unlike the Covenant and Halo, they literally turned them into balls of glass. Covenant only did a partial job. Humanity did the entire thing. No life is spared.
Good
Yeah.
lord.
They're literally burning the entire planet down. Wait, why do that? We have no idea, but it's literally almost like a genocidal campaign. What should we do? Of course, go to war with humans. There's no excuse you can have for this. What about that weird plague they had that drove people crazy? Well, that better be the reason, because we're killing them anyway.
They just want an excuse to fight the humans.
Basically, because if you recall, there's that weird primordial anger towards humans because, again, the precursors kind of chose them over them. It's like second favorite child. Sure, not every Forerunner knew about this, but it's almost like this vehement primal hatred. Now, my favorite part of this is that the humans literally told the Forerunners multiple times, the fucking changing plague is a real problem. Let us cleanse these planets before, it spreads to your territory, because it will spread, and you're not ready for it. And the Forerunners being like, you up, mate? You chose them over us? Wait, what do you mean chose us over them? Sorry, force of habit. You're dead.
Hey,
No,
look,
no
a
excuse.
free ghost.
Oh, cool. Ah, shit, dude.
Here, you can have the hand-me-down.
And during this whole transgression, humanity was literally blown to the Stone Age after they kind of got their shit kicked in because turns out the only reason humanity lost that war was because we were so worn down by the flood that we had no. The whole thing we did was an act of desperation to begin with. So the Forerunners basically took out humanity very quickly. Well, I say quickly. It took them a while, to be honest. I don't remember exactly how long. It was enough for, like, the Didact to just hate humanity, but also respect us for being a warrior race, and he's, like, the warrior caste, and he's like, we're both men of culture, General. I'm witnessing you as you die because, you know, something, something, the sins of your kind, something.
Dark side.
Yeah. And that's when the Forerunners met the Flood. Specifically the Primordial, and they started basically asking questions, and the Primordial literally said, "Lol, dude, you just did my work for me." What? Anyway, with the the Primordial basically showed them invited the Didact to his Discord server, and immediately the Didact went completely fucking nuts. And yada yada yada. If you played Halo 4, you know what happens next.
He just fucking...
He turns into Voldemort, trying to find a cure for the Flood, realizes I need to turn everyone into robots by cybernetic...
Oh, God. I was gonna say it just turns them into dust, just Thanos snaps.
Actually, he does that to the Primordial, and that basically the Primordial... It purposely infected him with the Flood when he was, you know, free from his containment cell for a bit, and went back in to basically, like, you know, prove a point to the Didact, like, you can't fucking kill me, my consciousness will live in the Flood eternally, and the guy's like, yeah, lol, yeah, right, and used the stasis tank to fast forward time to the point where the Primordial literally just dissolved into nothingness. Because time was, he basically went through, like, 20,000 millennia in, like, a couple seconds. And then...
Not to tangent too far off shit, but... Question. What was on Zeta Hill? I remember there being some Lord tidbit of shit about, like, there might have been like a, what is it, the thing before? I always forget their names.
I will get to that. Okay. You know Mendicant Bias?
5 enemies remain.
No, I know the name sounds familiar. I don't know the image. What is he?
He was a contender class AI, which basically
so
means...
he was one of the AI, so...
Yes, he was the lead AI for the Foreign Navy because they're so fucking lazy that they just said, hey, instead of having like a bunch of generals, let's just have one super AI run everything. What can go wrong? In fact, while I was doing this to prevent our scientists from committing suicide, because, you know, it seems like there's some sort of cognito hazard of Primordial, let's have him interrogate the Primordial. What can go wrong? Hey, Mendicant. Yeah? You ever read the, Karl Marx's, Communist Manifesto? Seems like a cool book.
Future me, you better not fucking pussy out on this. I want captions on these videos. I want actual little animation, like fucking... I don't care if you have to version of fucking... those PNG tuber territory. I want visuals to this. Besides you fucking around in a ghost and hopping about in Halo for 2 hours.
They could just literally just be PNGs hopping up and down and just have like stock images or some shit. That would be funny.
That's basically the idea I want.
Anyway, the reason I say that basically after the Primordial basically gives him the fucking like super red pill and basically makes Mendicant Bias, you know, wanting to basically get power to the people and to, you know, like yada yada yada, whole fucking thing. I can't remember like the whole like slogans for it. He basically turned red, and Primordial's like, okay, now that you've helping me out with my whole like communist revolution, I'm gonna need you to basically like betray your people and give me all the coordinates to every fucking planet that you have. Also, you keep lying to your masters for now, and say that the torturing of the human specimens is required for the cure to happen. And it's like, wait, you mean there's no actual cure to the Flood? Nope. I just like their suffering. Because I'm an asshole.
Is fucking Flood still a warthog?
Anyway, this brings into your question about Zeta Halo. Zeta Halo was one of the basically 1,001 plans were tried, and the Halos were built preemptively as like a last resort, just in case. And Zeta Halo was actually a mixture between things, because it was a flood research facility along with an actual array on the first generation of Halo rings, which I believe had like 12, I think. And then, you know, shit happened with the greater arc, and then the lesser arc was built to compensate, making a set of new Halos. Zeta Halo, one of the reasons why it's all this like fucking super decorated in Halo Infinite.
Why?
It's because in the other Halos were built more or less as a the first generation of Halo rings was built when the Forerunners still had a lot of resources, so their pompous architecture could be made. The later generations had only like required stuff. That's why they're like the sterile like silver walls and shit.
They just pull. They just pull an Elon Musk and saying it's not necessary, just cut it out?
Basically, it was a situation of, hey, where are we gonna put all these like platinum statues with gold tablets? We're not making that. You think we have gold? We're out of resources. And that's why why the other Halo rings were much smaller. Zeta Halo is actually one of the larger rings because it's from the first generation.
Just do like the Owl Elf did in fucking Outer Wilds and just waste all your planet's resources on a single fucking ring thing. They literally did. It was like a fucking Halo ring. Insert image.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. Basically, and basically this is and we're reminded why the Forerunners were not picked by Mantle because you know the whole scenario where they gave it a contender AI free range to they gave a contender class AI free reign to do whatever the fuck it wanted. And this involved the Palace of Pain, where, okay, on Zeta Halo, this is something that I really wish we could have saw in, like, the Halo Infinite gameplay. But I hope that in, like, later DLCs or add-ons or, like, free fucking DLC they're gonna do, if they do anything. Because there was a human civilization on Zeta Halo. That was where a lot of humans were being kept. And you're probably wondering, wait, what do you mean by human civilization? They had steamboats! Like full-on steam-powered mechanisms and planes! I say planes, but it's more like airships. Humans! Ah yes, we're kept on the strange, like, ring-like artifact. We just basically, you know, build the literal, like, let me just build this, a Zeppelin.
Manslaughter. Reinforcements.
I love Halo lore. It's so fucking stupid and awesome at the same time.
I love manslaughtering reinforcements.
Anyway, back to the Palace of Pain. Basically, the entire thing in the Zeta Halo was the primordial Dominican bias doing a little trolling and tricking the entire Forerunner civilization. The Didact, who's also going crazy because of his contact with the primordial. Because, you know, of course, everyone has to go crazy. Excuse me. And they did a bit of trolling and would kidnap humans from these civilizations and put them in a thing known as Palace of Pain, where if you were to, it's rare that you would ever get out, as the experiments are so invasive that they make vivisection look like a fucking child's play. Anybody wondering, what useful information they get from this? Nothing. Because there was no cure.
He didn't put lotion on its skin and then it got the hose.
Yeah. The entire thing was literally the Gravemind and Mendicant Bias doing a little fucking trolling to the Forerunner Empire because I believe the Didact didn't really want to fire the rings at this point because, you know, either because it's like, you know, like personal like grievances or because he felt as if it was unnecessary. Either way, maybe a mixture of both. Either way, he wanted to find the cure that humanity supposedly had, because the Primordial whispered in his ear saying, hey, yo, we could infect humans when they invented the cure. Something that they had, that 90% of their civilization edited their genetics, and they definitely have a cure in them. And when you devolve them, a lot of that cure went missing, so you better start cutting them open and finding it. Basically, the Primordial went like, do you want to play a game? These humans, there's a key. A piece of a key. Either cut open all the humans and you have 50 seconds to cut open as many humans as you can to get the key.
Don't
You
believe all
have
was no,
Five
there was no
enemies
key.
remaining.
Yeah. LOL. I did a little bit of trolling. Anyway, yada yada yada. If you know what happens next, Didact basically, has two Didacts because cloning or whatever the fuck, I can't remember.
He cloned himself?
Yeah, there's two Didacts. The Didact and the Didact, I believe. Basically, the Forerunners have this thing called a Geas where it's not really a clone,
Two enemies
sort of.
remaining. Last
It's a whole fucking thing I would get into, but the Didact we know from Halo 4 went crazy because he communicated with the Primordial, and the Primordial literally made him think that, yes, humans are a greater threat, as they're just banging rocks, going like, I mean, to be fair, they did just, in like a manner of like a couple generations, made airships on their like, prison rings, so, to be fair, technology was not really all that much of a problem to humans because, airships. But at the same time, they're still like primitive ape people at that point. He went crazy, went to a burn. The Primordial talked to him, basically like, "Hey, bitch, I'm back, and call me a grave mine now, since I'm now a chorus of people. I've conducted the chorus of screaming souls, and I'm now the fucker who's in control of everything. You're fucked." He then makes the Prometheans, yada yada yada. He gets locked away by his ex-wife, who shoots him in the fucking chest with a light rifle. Doesn't kill him because his suit was protecting him. Locks him up inside in like a shield world, hooked up to the domain. The Primordial told someone told the librarian, saying, "Hey, when the Halo rings go off, he can't go to the domain because domain is a neurological structure in space-time, and if the rings go off, it's gonna fucking destroy it partially, and he's just gonna be locked in a sphere for eternity, basically, with only his thoughts to welcome him." And she's like, "Oh, fuck." And purposely told the Prometheans not to let him out. And then Giant Halo lets him out. Thanks, Cortana. Anyway, Halo rings go off, offensive bias is revealed, going like, "Hey, yo, Mannequin Bias."
bonus round.
Mannequin Bias goes like, "Who are you?" "I'm you, but dumber."
Game over.
Wait, what do you mean dumber? Immediately sucker punches Mannequin. See, you're too smart to do that. Because here's the thing. The Foreigners did the one thing that no one has realized would be a smart thing to do. A smart person would know what another smart person would do, because they would know exactly what to do. But you can't expect a dumb person to do something because they're too fucking stupid. They're
Like
dumber than you, so you don't know what it's a situation like this. Mannequin Bias and offensive bias. Offensive bias is like a downplay version of Mannequin Bias, and Mannequin Bias tried converting it to the Flood's cause. But offensive bias literally said, "Yeah, but fuck you," and sucker punched him, buying the Foreigners enough time and basically getting on like Mannequin Bias's nerves so much that he literally took control of all the Flood's ships and directed them to attack Offensive Bias. And the Offensive Bias said, "You fool! You absolute fool! You activated my trap card!" And then immediately fires the Halo rings, wiping out all the Flood and making Mannequin Bias's crusade pointless. And the surviving Forerunners locked him away in several pieces, with Offensive Bias being his gatekeeper on Zeta Halo.
Haha, joke's on you, dumbass.
I'm dumber. Wait, you sacrificed
Chicken
your
heads goes too.
you sacrificed your entire army? That's stupid. Exactly. You would never expect it, you fool.
Oh, it's kicking in.
Anyway, to finish that up,
Start. Tough luck.
basically, the surviving foreigners who were on the Ark came back to the galaxy after, like, the Flood were kind of, cleansed because they didn't have their food source, and the robots weren't affected by the Halo ring, so, You're probably wondering, wait, what do you mean? The Halo rings don't kill Flood. You know that, right? However, yeah, it doesn't kill Flood, it kills their food source. But, it kills anything with a neurological system, basically like a nervous system. The Flood combat forms have a nervous system. That's the reason why they're able to walk around. So it basically turns the Flood's combat forms into goo. the Flood is still alive and still thinking, partially, but it's still, you know, it can't do shit.
So what about all those flood-infected worlds?
They just start, after basically there's no combat forms to fight back, the Forerunners' automated systems start cleansing these worlds before being reseeded. And what wasn't cleansed died off and rotted.
Wouldn't that mean that some, like, bad fucking Cheeto dust would be left behind?
No. Flood spores... Okay, a lot of people don't really know the lifespan of flood spores, but it does have a lifespan.
Ah.
The only flood that survived were in facilities that were still being used to study the flood because the Forerunners really didn't have a contingency for, you know, these facilities because they're too busy with galactic genocide to save the galaxy. And then reseeding the life that they killed.
So the Cheeto dust has, or whatever shit, has an expiration date.
Yeah. It needs to basically have, and plus, none of it was really left after the Flood took over because the Flood was basically like, okay, we're just gonna take all the biomass we can and do like a all in. Anyway, basically after all this occurred, Mannequin Bias was straight up told, yeah, you're a fucking idiot, by Offensive Bias, which basically, you know, is the equivalent of like a lesser version of you who's much dumber, giving it to you straight on how you were wrong. And explaining basically the situation of like, you're literally too smart to see the obvious answer. The Flood are a genocidal parasitic organism that is not evolution. That is stagnancy, Mendicant. You fucking idiots! And then Mendicant was like, oh. Oh.
Current me is having a lot of this fly over his head, but I know future me is gonna enjoy listening back to this like a fucking podcast.
As Mendicant was like, oh, I'm so fucking sorry, guys. I don't know what was over me. Yeah, we know you drank the fucking Flood Kool-Aid, but come on, man. You're supposed to be smarter than me. Anyway, the Ecumene, I believe is what they're called, or something like that, more or less just punish Mannequin Bias by separating several pieces of him to basically be left in prison to more or less think over what he's done and meditate, more or less in a repentant sort of way. Basically, one part was left in the key ship that the Covenant later used as like the power source for their entire like fucking homeworld. You know, High Charity, the key ship. That kicked off the whole Covenant war because Mannequin Bias accidentally told the Covenant exactly what humanity was, and they felt as if humanity was a threat, and Mannequin Bias was like, oh fuck, here we go again. One was left on the Ark, basically thinking that communicates with us, and actually, okay, fun fact, Mannequin Bias actually helped out the Chief on the Ark.
You did?
You know when the Halo ring's exploding and it conveniently left the path for us? Mannequin Bias was communicating us through the terminals, and the entire time was secretly helping us out by helping out the basically using his computation powers, processors, to literally cause the explosions on the ring to not detonate right on us. Like manipulating the subsystems, as well as helping out the actual monitor on the ring to contain the Flood so that they couldn't, you know, override their controls. As well as it's the reason why even with Johnson, you can take as much time as you want to basically not go and save Johnson, is because Mannequin Bias is actively using his admin powers to prevent them from activating the ring even if they have a reclaimer. Like, I like the picture as Johnson's hand is basically placed on the on switch. It doesn't activate, and just see Mannequin Bias saying, didn't say the magic word, like in Jurassic Park. But, yeah, Mannequin Bias actually is helping out the Chief during the entire point, and you can miss it out if you don't read the audio logs. There is one last Mannequin Bias fragment, and that is on Zeta Halo, if I recall correctly. And with it on Zeta Halo, means only one thing if 343 wants to bring that character back. We're gonna talk to him.
When? You think we're gonna talk to him by the time this video comes out?
Hell no. Honestly, I feel as if it's not gonna be anywhere near.
Oh yeah. This is gonna.
Because-
We're recording a time capsule right now.
Reinforcements.
Because when it comes down to it, Mannequin Biases have a character that he imposes his self-isolation as a sign of repentance, because at the end of the day, he doesn't fucking hate himself. No, actually, no, opposite that. He does hate himself because he got tricked by the fucking primordial. And he's like, I'm supposed to be smarter than this. Like, he doesn't hate himself for, like, you know, fucking over his creators or anything. He hates himself for fucking over his creators, yes, but it's more so that he got outsmarted. And he feels as if helping out humanity and helping them become the Reclaimers is actually his, like, form of repentance. That's the reason why he saves Chief, because he sees Chief as humanity's next step of evolution. You know, Spartan-2's. And I believe Brian Reed tried bringing Mannequin Bias back in the comic book series, but I refuse to admit that fucking Forerunner Basie Ancilla is Mannequin Bias. It is not. I refuse. Brian Reed can suck a fat cock.
What is this monkey doing over here?
2 enemies remaining.
Where the fuck is this hitbox?
Last enemy.
I'll save you, monkey! As I fly into the
Live added. Weapon drop.
pool. Are we putting the pin it there? Are we done ranting? Is that it? I think that's more than enough.
Yeah, I'm done talking about Halo lore for now. I need a drink of fucking water.